gentlemen, thank you so much for coming this evening, and we welcome you to Chalfont St Giles Memorial Hall, which is rather a fitting place for us to present this tribute of remembrance to you tonight. There will be an interval, and in that time I hope you enjoy a glass of wine, and then come back to your seats. And you have to do some work then, because you have to be doing some singing. There's a problem: if you don't sing, you can't go home. Also, can I ask you to check your mobile phones? Make sure that they're on silent or turned off. Thank you. This is the bit that I've never done before, and I'm really looking forward to it. Fire exits. The idea for this evening's programme came from a script that was written and presented in a school assembly. It was written to show the children why we buy poppies at this time of the year. And Pam Connor, she wrote the script, and she has kindly allowed us to add to it. So I hope that you enjoy our presentation. I hope you find it informative and emotionally engaging. Statistics for the Great War, they really vary a great deal. So in the main, this evening, we have taken our information from the Imperial War Museum. Thank you once again to be with us this evening. It's really lovely as we put out our tribute to the women, the men, the boys who died in the First World War, and so that we could have a future. Thank you.
There were many factors that led up to the outbreak of World War I. For a start, the armies of both France and Germany had more than doubled between 1870 and 1914, and that in turn, of course, led to a building up of weaponry and an increase in mistrust.
Colonial rivalry had led to a naval arms race between Britain and Germany, which had seriously worsened relations between the two countries.
And in addition, unease in the Balkans was rising, and when Austria's Archduke Ferdinand visited Sarajevo in June of 1914, he was assassinated by a Serbian nationalist by the name of Gavrilo Princip.
Although defensive in nature, the Triple Alliance and the Triple Entente meant that any conflict between one country from each alliance was bound to involve the others. Hence, the assassination led to a month of diplomatic maneuvering between Germany, France, Britain, Russia, and Austria-Hungary.
And then, on August 2nd, 1914, Germany's demand for free passage through Belgium was denied. And so, on the morning of the 3rd of August, German forces nevertheless entered Belgium and declared war with France. As Britain had long-standing treaty obligations to protect Belgium, the British government declared war with Germany on the 4th of August.
Posters everywhere bullied men to join the services. Your country needs you. Men from all over the country joined up, believing that it would be over by Christmas. Truly, the odds were against the survivors.
called pals battalions with their friends, family and workmates. Army service promised excitement, travel and a regular wage, which particularly appealed to those from the industrialised north, where the numbers of recruits were enormous. The losses to the PALS divisions, especially on the Somme, were devastating. Whole neighbourhoods lost most of their young men in a single day. Communities were left bereft. This was the first war in which aeroplanes would play a part. In August 1914, France was able to deploy around 1,500 military aircraft, Germany 1,000, and Britain 179. Britain lost in the region of 7,000 airmen by the end of the war.
Suffered more than 500,000 men killed, wounded and captured. Never before, and never again, would so many casualties be caused in such a short space of time.
On Christmas Day 1914, singing was heard coming from the German benches around the Ypres. British and German troops climbed out of their trenches and met in no man's land to exchange cigarettes and photographs. At some points along the line, the two sides even played football. They then returned to their own lines, and the next day resumed firing at each other.
Cause a whiz
fighters behind the front line dispatched increasing numbers of troops to replace the dead and the wounded. The poet Siegfried Sassoon wrote, good morning, the general said, when we met him last week on the way to the line. Now the soldiers he smiled at are most of them dead, and we're cursing his staff for incompetent swine. He's a cheery old card, grunted Harry to Jack, as they slogged up to Arras with rifle and pack. But he did for them both by his plan of attack.
At home, women took on the jobs of men who were away fighting, proving that they were more than capable. No longer would they be content to be considered brainless ornaments or mere skivvies. Military, medical and nursing personnel were mobilised at the outbreak of war, followed by the largely female voluntary aid detachment, of whom it was said, she hasn't a sword and she hasn't a gun, but she's doing her duty, now fighting's begun. There are also many volunteer ambulance personnel. This is a reading from the diary of Nurse Edith Appleton, who was at the front at that time.
Frantic day from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. One long rush of badly wounded being admitted. 3 trainloads have been evacuated. It is a wicked war. Officers and men, many so blown to bits that they just come in to die. Many straight to the theatre for amputation of limb or limbs, or to have their insides, which have been blown out, replaced, and made a little more comfortable for the few hours left to them.
At war, the men dreamed of home, their families, and their girlfriends.
It's a long way to Tipperary. It's a long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary, to the sweetest girl I know. Goodbye, Piccadilly, farewell, Leicester Square. It's a long, long way to Tipperary, but my heart's right there. It's a long way to Tipperary. It's a long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary, to the sweetest girl I know. Goodbye, Piccadilly, farewell, Leicester Square. It's a long, long way to Tipperary, but my heart's right there.
At the Battle of Gallipoli, Allied forces, together with troops from Australia and New Zealand, fought a futile and costly war in sweltering heat. The might of the Turkish forces had been badly underestimated. Anzac Day, on the 25th of April, in remembrance of the Gallipoli conflict, is one of Australia's most important national occasions. In 1915, the SS Lusitania, carrying American civilians, was sunk by German submarines. This deeply angered the Americans, who until then had preferred to stay neutral. In 1916, they entered the war on our side. US soldiers were fit and healthy and keen to join in comparison to our troops who were sick and very tired. The arrival of the Americans hastened an end to the war, and with a certain amount of cynicism, the British sang, "It wasn't the Yanks who won the war, hallelujah. It wasn't the Yanks who won the war, hallelujah. It wasn't the Yanks who won the war, all the fighting's done before, hippy dippy hallelujah."
In 1916, Britain suffered heavy losses at sea during the Battle of Jutland, but it was to be the last time that Germans ventured to sea in strength. In World War I, as well as many thousands of wounded sailors in all branches of seafaring forces, 44,000 Royal Naval personnel and 16,000 merchant seamen were drowned. These were men who have no known grave but the sea.
On the 1st of July 1916, which was the first day of the Battle of the Somme, 20,000 British Empire soldiers were killed, making it the greatest one-day loss ever suffered by the British Army. Oh, see him in the House of Commons passing laws to put down crime, while the victims of his passions trudge on in mud and slime.
A letter from the Somme. I saw troops trying to clamber over the uncut wire. Bullets thud into them. Bodies are left stuck on the barbed wire. Soon the wires seem like a gigantic spider's web, with hundreds of jerking flies gummed to it. Artillery shells thud and roar into the troops. One explodes quite close to Tom. He is thrown to the side by the blast, and when he climbs shakily to his feet again, he is confronted by all that is left of a group of 4 men who were hit by a shell. A boot, torn clothing, mutilated remains.
At the Battle of Verdun, which lasted from February to August 1916, 315,000 French soldiers and 282,000 German soldiers were killed. But the British soldier, drowning in mud, covered in lice, deaf from shell fire, he never lost his sense of humour.
Down comes the rain, cold, icy rain, filling the trenches and the shell holes in no man's land. The bombardment by both sides goes on and on. The mud gets thicker and thicker. This is Passchendaele. Wounded men suffocate in the slime. Any man leaving the planks laid across the mud risks drowning.
Details, a poem by Siegfried Sassoon. If I were fierce and bald and short of breath, I'd live with scarlet majors at the base and speed glum heroes up the line to death. You'd see me with my puffy, petulant face guzzling and gulping at the best hotel, reading the Roll of Honour. Poor young chap, I'd say. I used to know his father well. Yes, we've lost heavily in this last scrap. And when the war is done and youth stone dead, I'd toddle off home and die in bed.
In 3.5 months of the Battle of Passchendaele, the Allied troops gained 5 miles and 265,000 men were killed or wounded.
In 1915, this rose to 19,000 per month.
By 1916, this had increased to 44,000. And in 1917, the number reached 56,000.
And by 1918, a ghastly 75,000 a month.
No journalist was allowed to report from the front line, so the people at home had no idea how bad things were. Only the poets could reach a wide audience with the truth of the horrors of war.
Anthem for Doomed Youth by Wilfred Owen. What passing bells for these who die as cattle? Only the monstrous anger of the guns. Only the stuttering rifles' rapid rattle can patter out their hasty orisons. No mockeries now for them. No prayers, nor bells, nor any voice of mourning, save the choirs. The shrill, demented choirs of wailing shells and bugles calling to them from sad shires. What candles may be held to speed them all? Not in the hands of boys, but in their eyes shall shine the holy glimmers of goodbyes. The pallor of girls' brows shall be their pall. Their flowers, the tenderness of patient minds, and each slow dust, a drawing down of blinds.
When the servicemen came home on leave, they wanted to forget the war for a few brief days. The theatre at that time concentrated on happy shows with sentimental music, which suited the mood of the homesick and lovesick soldiers.
Same old
following order was issued by Field Marshal Haig on the 12th of April 1918. With our backs to the wall and believing in the justice of our cause, each one of us must fight to the end. The Germans attacked and opened a gap of 30 miles in the Allied lines in Flanders. They drove the Allies back 40 miles and set their sights on Paris. By July, the Second Battle of the Marne had begun. It was the last German offensive of any importance. The Allies advanced on 7th November, and at the 11th hour, on the 11th day of the 11th month, the fighting ended.
This diary is 100 years old and belonged to my grandfather. He was Alexander Frank Field, and he joined the Monmouth Regiment on the 20th of November 1915, age 31. This was the entry for the Monday, the 11th of November 1918. Fine, and what a day it was. Nothing leaked out until the stroke of 11. Then flags of all sorts seemed to come out of the ground. Guns were fired. I shall never forget the excitement. Everyone seemed to go mad with delight.
World War I was one of the deadliest wars in all human history.
114,000 Americans,
375,000 Turks,
460,000 Italians,
760,000 from Britain and its empire,
1,358,000 French,
2,200,000 Germans and Austro-Hungarians.
And 1,200,000 Russians were killed in military action.
The civilian casualties numbered some 22 million, and of course thousands of men injured in mind and body would never lead a normal life again.
Remember too, all those civilians whose loved ones have been killed or permanently altered by their experiences. Their lives had also been scarred by this war, and they too had wounds to deal with.
for the next 20 years, the world was plagued with economic problems. And to add to the misery, a worldwide outbreak of influenza claimed between 50 and 100 million lives. British troops were promised that they'd return to a land fit for heroes. Instead, they found unemployment, food shortages, and in the 1920s, a worldwide slump.
When you buy your poppy for Remembrance Sunday, remember these men and women who gave their lives fighting the war to end all wars.